Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and with the first sneak peek, we now have a pretty good idea where at least some of the inspiration for the next update, the September update, where it's coming from. And it's probably coming from, judging by all of the iconography in the sneak peek, Marvel's Damnation, which was a short-run crossover series featuring a ton of Marvel heroes and some villains, most notably Mephisto up there, and then Doctor Strange down there. But it's a really cool cross-section of basically so many of the most popular characters in the Marvel Universe. So I know a lot of you are really excited because you might not be a fan of Doctor Strange, you might not be a fan of Mephisto, but there's someone in there along the lines that you are a fan of, and there's a chance that they could get a hit, they could get a new uniform, they could, get an upgrade, whatever, new character comes into play. So I wanted to give you guys a rundown of what to expect from Marvel's Damnation. Now, with that being said, I cannot say, of course, with 100% I cannot say with any certainty that the update will only be about Marvel's Damnation. It could be about lots of other things. They like to piece together different updates. But what makes this really special is we've already had 1.5 updates around a Donny Cates penned comic storyline with the Guardians of the Galaxy, Silver Surfer Black, and Cosmic Ghost Rider. Man, this is part 2, so hopefully we can see more of this because there's still some amazing stories like Absolute Carnage and Thor Herald that have also been written recently in the last few years, and this year, by Mr. Cates. Nick Spencer's on this one as well, so it's not just Donny Cates on this one writing, it's also Nick Spencer, and then nod to Attack on Titan with Rod Rice. But yeah, I can't say with certainty that this is the only thing that's going to be drawn from inspiration-wise for the update. And then secondly, as you figured by now, there's going to be heavy spoilers for the comic storyline. So if you haven't read it yourself, I can give you guys a bit of a reading order. Now, the Damnation storyline is actually a part of the Doctor Strange storyline that Donny Cates came on as a guest writer for. So the Doctor Strange got rebooted. He went through a whole bunch of different stories, and then towards the end of the run, Donny Cates jumped in for about 10 or so issues, and then he wrapped it up. He wrapped up his sort of little run with Damnation. Damnation itself is only, I believe, 4 issues. It's quite short. But the lead up to Damnation is actually, in my opinion, more interesting than Damnation. And the lead up to Damnation is actually with Doctor Strange 381. So if you want to read it, it goes 381 up to 390. Now 388, 389, and 390 start to talk about the Damnation storyline, but they talk about it in the sort of future tense, like in the past tense, so it's already kind of happened. So if you want to read it in the right order, I believe around 387 or 388, you'll flip over to Damnation, then flip back to Doctor Strange, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what happens basically with the lead up to Damnation is that Loki becomes the Sorcerer Supreme. And this was actually publicized, and there's a lot of news about it. They're like, what happened to Doctor Strange? Loki has become the Sorcerer Supreme? Yes. So essentially what happens, how Loki becomes the Sorcerer Supreme and how Doctor Strange loses those powers of Sorcerer Supreme is that he becomes a veterinarian. It's really funny. But basically there's a tournament. There's a Vishanti-led tournament, and Doctor Strange loses the tournament to Loki, or he doesn't really lose the tournament to Loki, but he just doesn't seem to have it in him anymore. He's not really the, he doesn't have that special whatever that you need, and he's got hatred in him, and he's got regret, and he's all mixed up, full of all these negative emotions. So the Vishanti decide, you know what, Loki's got something to prove. He wants to make amends. He has regret in his past, but he wants to become a better person. He wants to change everyone's opinion of him. He's not just the god of mischief. There's some character development for Mr. Loki. So they give Loki the powers of the Sorcerer Supreme. Doctor Strange gives up his house on Bleecker Street. He gives up his cape and his powers. And that's sort of how the story starts. But, as things develop, we find out that Loki's trying to get access to this door inside of Doctor Strange's house, and Doctor Strange sort of has a plan to try to get back Sorcerer Supreme and get back his powers from Loki. So he enlists the help of Sentry. This actually doesn't have anything directly to do with Damnation itself, but it's actually quite interesting. So Doctor Strange, this is Doctor Strange, by the way. He shaves his hair and he looks very strange. Anyways, Strange. He enlists the power of Sentry. It's actually really cool. So imagine if they cross-reference with Sentry and we get a Sorcerer Supreme uniform for Loki and we get Sentry as a new character. That would be sick, right? That's why I wanted to bring this up. So he enlists the help of Sentry and they go to Asgard. I'm flipping like way forward, but anyways, they go to Asgard, and Odin's not there, but Kull Bornson is there, his brother, and so Doctor Strange makes Sentry attack the Asgardians, and then Doctor Strange goes down to Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and he gets magic from Yggdrasil, and this is actually what his staff is made out of. It's made out of the World Tree, and so he actually becomes a super badass. So there's a possibility. I mean, it's unlikely, but there's a possibility we could see this uniform for Doctor Strange. I actually really like this uniform. It looks very, very cool, and it gives me sort of Wizard of Earthsea vibes, which is a book that I read in my youth, so I actually really like it. Anyways, he gets this staff, and he fights Loki, and he... anyways, there's the Void is involved with Sentry. With Sentry is always the Void involved. He fights Loki, they fight together, they defeat Void, and he eventually gets his powers back. Loki relinquishes the powers to Doctor Strange. Turns out that Vishanti wasn't actually there, and it was all a trick by Loki. So it's actually a nice little twist story. It's the usual premise with Loki, right? Nothing is as it seems, but it's kind of nice. But that all leads into Damnation. All of that sort of leads us to Damnation, because with his powers restored, Doctor Strange wants to sort of flex a little bit his powers. And so what he does is he revives all of the people that were killed in an attack on Las Vegas. So that's why they reference in the sneak peek, they reference entertainment or something like that, entertainment facility. So don't read too much into that as a story mode thing, because basically what had happened in another issue, I think it was like Thor and the Avengers or something like that. Jane Foster is Thor in this storyline. Basically, I can't remember, it was aliens or something, attacked Las Vegas, attacked the Earth, and destroyed Las Vegas. Las Vegas was gone, reduced to ashes, rubble, atoms. And so Doctor Strange, with his new powers back, after Loki had taken them from him, he gets them back. He brings everyone in Las Vegas back. But when he does that, huge surge of magical powers, he basically brings Mephisto with him. And so this is how it sort of leads in. And so this is what happens in Las Vegas. It gets attacked by these aliens. I haven't read this connecting storyline, but everything gets turned to rubble. And this is important here. I believe that is Sentry. This is important here because these 5 characters will be referenced again in the Damnation storyline. So we have Falcon, we have Captain Marvel, we have Thor, Jane Foster, Black Panther, and Hawkeye. And we have all these uniforms in the game except for this Hawkeye uniform, but that's okay. So these 5 are there, sort of taking responsibility for what happened and apologizing, and hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people perished in that awful catastrophe. So what does Doctor Strange do? He restores. It's kind of cut off. It's a huge panel, but he restores all of Las Vegas. Renewal, restoration, and he's a bit tired, right? He kind of had to flex his powers here. He restores everything, so that after the whole Loki situation. But in restoring things, he also brings about some trouble. So that's where Hotel Inferno comes out. It sort of rises out from the ground, and all of the existing humans who had sinned and whose souls were of value to Mephisto get turned into undead, zombies, whatever, sinning creatures, including the Avengers. So this is where some people are worried that the Avengers may get sort of Ghost Rider-like looks for themselves. That's not going to happen. I highly doubt it. They are sort of in the story, and Mephisto uses them as pawns to get his way, and he sort of uses them as sort of henchmen. Black Panther, Jane Foster, Ghost Rider-ized Jane Foster, whatever. Not quite Ghost Rider, but like Flaming Skull, right? And Captain Marvel and stuff. But they're bit players. They're not actually like really important to the storyline, except for the references and for what you're going to see later with Doctor Strange. But anywho, so that all happens, and so Doctor Strange is like, okay, I got to take care of this. So he walks into Hotel Inferno, and he decides to play poker, a different kind of poker. But anyways, he decides to play cards with Mephisto, and the deal is if he wins, Mephisto leaves. If Mephisto wins, he gets Doctor Strange's soul. Doctor Strange cheats at the card game. Of course he does. And Mephisto finds out, and Mephisto takes him and tortures him, harasses him, he tortures him. So, of course, Doctor Strange needs saving. So who saves him? Wong. So Wong puts together this super team of sinners. And that's the whole reason why you have this eclectic group of characters, because they're not really good guys, or in Elsa Bloodstone's case, good gals. They're sort of like Batman. They're anti-heroes, right? They've done a lot of good, but they've done some bad too, right? You've got Iron Fist, you've got Mr. Moon Knight, aka Moon Knight, who's got, lots of personalities, some of whom are kinder, some of whom are a little bit more violent. Man-Thing, Dr. Voodoo. You've got Blade, Ghost Rider, and then Elsa Bloodstone. So it's a really, really cool cross-section of characters. And they devised this plan to rescue Doctor Strange. And the thinking is their souls are not very appealing to Mephisto because they've done so much evil. So they're not going to be affected by what happens or what had happened to the other Avengers. And that's sort of like the thin logic to this storyline to actually make things work. So yeah, this is them sort of turning on themselves. This is like a different version of events here. Not a different version, but like it's from a different perspective, and they turn into these sort of, you know, flaming skulled versions of those characters. And it's just some really, really cool images, right? But these are not going to be characters, guys. These are not going to be uniforms. That's not how it's going to work. But it's very, very cool. It looks really nice. This would make a really cool wallpaper or whatever. So yeah, so that happens. At the same time, the dog, the ghost dog, Bats, he contacts Wong, and I'm sort of jumping back and forth, but anyways, that's how he puts together this team: the Hunter, the Knight, the Slayer, the Order, the Fist, and the Rider. So really, really cool. You know, I just love the way that they sort of meld the story and the text with the imagery. It's really, really nice. This one's actually really funny. This is just an aside here. He goes to it's sort of like your paint by numbers, you know, assemble. You know, he goes to this guy, asks him for help. They have a little conversation. They agree. Wong goes to the next person, asks them for help. They sort of have a disagreement. They go back and forth. They argue, and then at the end they relent and they decide to help. Right. So here with Moon Knight, he's like, no. He says to Wong, no, I'm gonna go. Sorry, I got other things to attend to. I'm out. But good news, gentlemen, I'm in. So it's really funny, in but out of his mind. I really like that. So that level of humor, I could really appreciate. That actually made me laugh out loud. This is really, really funny. Moon Knight out, Mr. Knight in. So that was I really enjoyed that. So we could definitely see a Mr. Moon Knight uniform for him, which I would love to see, and I know a lot of people would. Chakra, etc. So yeah. So they go and they basically go to Hotel Inferno and they fight the flaming head versions of the Avengers. You've got Captain Marvel, you've got Ghost Rider, or not Ghost Rider, sorry, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Falcon, etc. At the same time, Doctor Strange is imprisoned in the Inferno Hotel. Oh yeah, there's also Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider. I don't want to get people's hopes up too much here, but he makes the smallest and shortest cameo ever. He basically just shows up, throws a cement truck at the bad guys, and then he's like, hey, I live in Las Vegas. And that's basically it. He's in like 3 panels total. He barely exists in the storyline. So, I mean, he could definitely be in the game. He could definitely come to the game, and I definitely would want him to come to the game. But I could definitely see why they skip over him for this, because he's barely in it. And I mean barely, which is kind of a bummer. Anywho, at the same time, guess who breaks Doctor Strange out of his captivity? Clea, who could get a uniform as well, Scarlet Witch, which we have this uniform in the game now, and Loki. However, they have to fight all these bad guys. Turns out, he's fighting his friends. So this is all a trick by Mephisto, where Clea, who was actually this Captain Marvel Skull version, took his soul. And so Doctor Strange is not actually there. He's in limbo. His soul is in limbo, or not limbo, but like a separate universe or whatever, separate dimension. And so he is fighting his friends unbeknownst to himself, and that's why the skull is on him. So this would actually be a really cool uniform for Doctor Strange, and this is why some people are going to say that Doctor Strange could be a villain in this update, but I highly doubt it. But it's possible. It's definitely possible, because he does sort of, he basically, you know, he gets possessed and he gets put under Mephisto's control temporarily. Now, don't worry, Bats jumps inside of him and sort of takes control of him, sort of the way that Ben takes control of Klaus in Umbrella Academy, and they sort of solve things. But along the way, this is really cool. Inside the sort of separate dimension where Doctor Strange is, okay, he's there with Bats, he meets Shumagorath. Would be a beautiful time for a GBR, just gonna say that. And so he has to fight Shumagorath. He basically has to fight, you know, Nightmare, Shumagorath, Blackheart, all of his sort of classic villains. Of course, on top of Shumagorath, guess who else shows up in this sort of in-between Soul Land? Dormammu! And he looks so sick. He's got a flaming sword. He's got battle armor on. This is a very, very, very cool. Sorry to like raise my voice suddenly, but this is a very, very cool version of Dormammu. And he essentially, there's like convoluted storyline where all of the four sort of major players, Dormammu, Nightmare, Shumagarath, and Mephisto, were all in their separate realms, and they all got brought together into one realm when Doctor Strange revived Las Vegas, and then they had to duke it out to see who would escape first through the portal, and Mephisto sort of tricked everyone, and that's why he was out first. And so they're sort of seeking their revenge. So it's sort of like the classic, the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario. So, Dormammu agrees to help Doctor Strange to not only defeat Shumagarath and Nightmare and the other sort of enemies that are lurking in this realm, but also to get Doctor Strange out of the realm if Doctor Strange will get Dormammu out of the realm. So it's like, it's a little give and take there. Well, Oops, we went ahead too far. Doctor Strange betrays Dormammu and leaves him there with the Avengers, and they sort of come back to their senses. They lose the Flaming Skulls things, and sort of they save the day, and they end up tricking Mephisto into leaving his throne, and then Johnny Blaze, the original Ghost Rider, takes his place. So then Ghost Rider becomes the King of Hell, or the Lord of Hell. And then Mephisto is sort of stripped of his powers. So now, stripped of his powers, they can take down Mephisto, and then they do take down Mephisto. So that's sort of how the story wraps up. And what's really cool about the takedown of Mephisto is that Doctor Strange taps into the power of, or in a way, sort of like a representation, a symbolism of the powers of the Avengers. So not only the original group like Black Panther and Falcon and stuff like that, but also the new ones that joined like Iron Fist. So you can see there's the dragon, you can see there's the Panther, he calls down lightning from Jane Foster. It's really cool. So I wouldn't be surprised, he's got literal fire in his hand. I wouldn't be surprised there's Captain Marvel's sort of star brand thing. I would not be surprised if he got skills like this. I think that'd be a really cool uniform for Doctor Strange with sort of one skill borrowed from each character, kind of like Taskmaster, but more enhanced and more, mystical and magical. It's actually a really cool panel. Unfortunately, the fight doesn't last very long because Mephisto's powered down and Doctor Strange is super powered and seeking blood, so it's more of just like a 1-2 page beatdown. It's not a prolonged toe-to-toe battle. So anyways, yeah. The story ends, and we cut to Doctor Strange explaining these events to the actual Clea, not a fake Clea, in a cafe in New York. So yeah, to be honest, as far as a comic run goes, I wasn't too impressed with the Damnation storyline. I actually enjoyed the Doctor Strange storyline from 381 to 390. I actually enjoyed that more. Both were written by Donny Cates. But yeah, I did personally feel like the Damnation storyline was a bit convoluted, like it was unnecessarily complicated, and then there were just some cheesy story, plot devices that were used to sort of get characters out of situations and justify why things were happening, just to bring all of these characters together. And yeah, I felt kind of bummed out that Ben Reilly was kind of tacked on at the end, and he wasn't actually an important part of why they actually did succeed in the end. But anywho, that is the storyline, and as you can see, there are a lot of characters that could potentially be drawn into this based on how large the scope of this update is. We don't know, right? We don't know. I really, really hope, a lot of people are already saying it, but I really hope we get some type of GBR. We could get a Dormammu GBR. We could really get a Mephisto Hotel Inferno GBR. We could get a Shumagarath GBR. We could get a Nightmare GBR. There's tons of things they could do here, but I definitely hope that this is a large update. I think I speak for a lot of players when I say that I hope that this update is, is big, is huge. We need a big update with lots of new content to really, and reworked content to really sink our teeth into. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of all that new information, and if you want to go read the storyline and get all the specific details and all the wording and stuff like that, yeah, let me know how that goes for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.